Total Recall reality. Douglas Quaid never left the recall memory implant chair. Paul Verhoeven's 1990 film presents two competing realities, and the evidence for the dream theory is substantial. During the recall procedure, Quaid requests a fantasy about being a secret agent on Mars who gets the girl and saves the planet. That's exactly what happens in the remainder of the film, beat for beat. Dr. Edgemar appears midway through and explains that Quaid is still in the chair experiencing a schizoid embolism, a mental breakdown that will lobotomize him if he doesn't take the red pill to wake up. Edgemar knows details about the fantasy that seem impossible, including Melina's appearance matching Quaid's specifications. The growing absurdity of events, including mutants with psychic powers and ancient alien technology perfectly suited to save Mars, reads like wish fulfillment rather than reality. Most damning is the ending itself. Quaid activates the alien reactor, Mars gets atmosphere, and he gets the girl as the screen fades to white, the exact moment a lobotomy would occur. Verhoeven deliberately structured the film so both interpretations work perfectly. The adventure could be real, with Quaid actually being Hauser and recovering his memories, or it's all fantasy, and the final whiteout represents brain death. The director has stated he prefers the dream interpretation, suggesting everything after recall is elaborate fiction generated by a dying mind desperately trying to be someone important. Shutter Island reversal. Teddy Daniels didn't regress at all. Martin Scorsese's 2010 psychological thriller ends with Andrew Laeddis, formerly known as Teddy Daniels, asking his doctor, which would be worse, to live as a monster or to die as a good man. Then, he walks toward the lighthouse for a lobotomy. The standard interpretation is that Andrew has regressed into his Teddy persona again, forcing Dr. Colley to proceed with the lobotomy as planned. But the final line suggests something darker. Andrew is lucid and choosing lobotomy deliberately. He understands he murdered his wife after she drowned their children. He knows he's Andrew Laeddis. He's been cured, but living with that knowledge, with full awareness of what he did and what he lost, is unbearable. So he chooses to die as a good man by pretending to be insane Teddy one more time, getting himself lobotomized, and erasing the memories permanently. The question isn't asking what would be worse in general, it's asking what Andrew himself has decided. He's giving Dr. Colley one last moment of understanding before deliberately destroying his own mind. Leonardo DiCaprio's delivery of the line carries weight and awareness, not confusion. Scorsese leaves it ambiguous whether the entire investigation was real role-play therapy or Andrew's delusion, but that final moment suggests a man making a conscious choice to end his suffering through self-inflicted mental death. The theory transforms the ending from tragic failure into Andrew's final act of agency. Life of Pi Truth. The animal story is a beautiful lie. Ang Lee's 2012 adaptation of Jan Martel's novel presents two versions of Pi's survival. In the first, Pi shares a lifeboat with a zebra, orangutan, hyena, and Bengal tiger named Richard Parker for 227 days. In the second version, told to Japanese insurance investigators, the zebra is a sailor with a broken leg, the orangutan is Pi's mother, the hyena is the ship's cook, and Richard Parker is Pi himself. The parallels are exact. The hyena kills the zebra and orangutan before the tiger kills the hyena, matching the cook killing the sailor and Pi's mother before Pi kills the cook. The tiger's behavior mirrors Pi's psychological state throughout. When Pi describes training Richard Parker, he's describing his own survival instincts. When the tiger disappears into the jungle without looking back, it represents Pi leaving his savage self behind. The Japanese investigators prefer the animal story because it's easier to accept, which is precisely the film's point about faith and storytelling. The writer character asks which story Pi prefers, and when Pi says the one with the tiger, the writer agrees, understanding that beauty matters more than brutal truth, but the evidence throughout suggests the human story is real. Pi's vegetarianism makes the idea of him killing and eating the cook nearly impossible to accept, so the animal version protects his self-image. The film asks whether comforting fiction is preferable to traumatic reality, leaving audiences to choose which version they believe, while heavily implying the truth is far darker than the fantasy. The Prestige duplicates. Robert Angier died over 100 times. Christopher Nolan's 2006 film reveals that Nikola Tesla's machine doesn't teleport, it creates a perfect duplicate while the original remains in place. Every time Angier performs The Real Transported Man, a copy appears in the Prestige location while the original falls through a trapdoor into a water tank and drowns. The film shows one performance where Angier falls into the tank while his duplicate takes the applause, confirming the machine's function. Angier performs the trick nightly for months, possibly over 100 performances based on the film's timeline. Each performance creates a new Angier who survives while the previous version dies. The Angier we follow in the final scenes is not the original, but the final duplicate in a long chain of copies. The tanks beneath the stage contain dozens of drowned Angiers, preserved corpses of previous iterations. The horror of the trick is that Angier never knows if he'll be the one who dies or the one who lives. Every night he steps into the machine, he has a 50-50 chance of drowning. His obsession with defeating Christian Bale's Borden drives him to commit serial suicide, killing himself over and over for applause. The film's structure mirrors the trick, with Nolan hiding the truth in plain sight. When Borden asks what Angier's trick was, the answer is that Angier was willing to die for his art, not once in a grand sacrifice, but repeatedly, mechanically, creating a mountain of his own corpses to be the greatest magician in London, the Fountain timeline. Only the present timeline is real. Darren Aronofsky's 2006 Meditation on Death presents three parallel stories. A Spanish conquistador seeking the Tree of Life in 1500, scientist Tommy Creo trying to cure his wife's brain tumor in the present, and a space traveler journeying to a dying star in the future. The theory suggests the conquistador and space traveler stories are fiction created by Tommy and his wife Izzy. Izzy is writing a book called The Fountain about the conquistador, and she asks Tommy to finish the final chapter. The conquistador sequences are the book's narrative. Tommy cannot accept Izzy's impending death, so after she dies, he imagines the space traveler story as his completion of her book, working through his grief by envisioning himself carrying her to the nebula called Xibalba. The future sequences are too surreal to be literal, with Tommy floating in a bubble with a dying tree, seeking the same immortality the conquistador sought. Both fantasy timelines represent Tommy's denial. He's a man of science who cannot save his wife, so he retreats into mysticism and metaphor. The tree in all three timelines represents Izzy, dying in all versions, with Tommy unable to save her despite his efforts. Aronofsky confirmed in interviews that interpretation is open, but the film's structure supports reading the past and future as Tommy's psychological journey toward acceptance. The final present-day scene shows Tommy at Izzy's grave, finally at peace, suggesting he completed his emotional work through the stories and can now let her go. Triangle loop. Jess is trapped in an infinite loop, and we're watching an iteration in the middle of an eternal cycle. Christopher Smith's 2009 psychological horror follows Jess, who goes on a boat trip that leads to boarding a mysterious ocean liner where she encounters multiple versions of herself. The film reveals that Jess dies in a car accident with her son, and this loop is her purgatory or dying consciousness replaying events forever. Each iteration, she tries to save everyone and return home to her son, but the loop resets, trapping her again. The evidence is overwhelming. When Jess reaches the ocean liner, there are dozens of identical lockets piled up, suggesting countless previous iterations. When she returns home, she sees herself getting ready for the boat trip, realizes she's in a loop, and kills her double to take her place. She then causes the car accident that kills her son, and a mysterious figure makes her promise to save him if she boards the boat again. The theory suggests there is no escape and no first iteration. The loop is eternal, with no beginning or end. Jess is Sisyphus, eternally repeating the same actions hoping for different results. The driver who takes her back to the harbor after the accident might be Karen, the ferryman of the dead, returning her to the cycle. Each version of Jess believes she can break the loop, but the film's structure proves otherwise. The piles of dead birds and repeated lockets show hundreds or thousands of iterations have already occurred, and the loop will continue forever. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this kind of content, I post videos like this all the time. I'd appreciate if you subscribed. 12 Monkeys Paradox. James Cole is trapped in a predestined loop with no free will. Terry Gilliam's 1995 time travel masterpiece ends where it begins, with young Cole witnessing a man being shot in an airport. That man is his future self, making Cole's entire life a closed loop leading to that moment. Cole is sent back from 2027 to investigate a plague that wiped out humanity in 1996. He meets Dr. Catherine Rayleigh, who helps him, and discovers the army of the 12 monkeys is a red herring. The actual plague is released by Dr. Peters, a virologist, who Cole and Catherine chase to the airport. Security shoots Cole, and young Cole watches from nearby, traumatized by the image that will haunt his dreams for decades. The loop is perfect. Cole's presence in the past doesn't change anything. He always died in that airport, young Cole always watched, and the plague always happened. Gilliam structures the film to suggest free will is an illusion in this timeline. Every action Cole takes was already part of history. He can't prevent the plague because he never did prevent it. The few scientists from the future watching Cole die on the plane suggest they knew the outcome all along and sent him back anyway, possibly just to collect plague samples rather than prevent the disaster. The theory posits that time travel in this universe doesn't allow changes, only fulfillment of events that already occurred. Cole's struggle is meaningless because his death is a fixed point. The tragedy is that he believes he can change things, but he's merely an actor performing a role that was written before he was born. Moon's Sam count. Hundreds of Sam Bells died before the one we meet. Duncan Jones's 2009 science fiction film reveals that Sam Bell is a clone working a 3-year contract mining helium-3 on the moon. Near the end, he discovers he's one of many clones created from the original Sam Bell's DNA, each implanted with false memories of a wife and daughter. The facility is filled with dozens of dormant clones in storage. But the theory goes darker. The 3-year contract is a lie. Each Sam clone begins to break down physically within weeks or months due to the cloning process, forcing Gertie, the AI assistant, to wake a replacement. The accident that injured the Sam we follow wasn't the first. It's happened dozens or hundreds of times, with each clone discovering the truth near the end of his deterioration. The hundreds of clones in storage suggest decades of operation with rapid turnover. The original Sam Bell likely died or aged out years ago, with his family receiving payments to maintain the illusion. Each clone is disposable, and Gertie's prime directive is keeping the facility operational, not protecting any individual Sam. The theory suggests the film shows us one of the only times a clone survived long enough to meet his replacement and escape. Most likely, previous Sams discovered the truth and died alone, with Gertie disposing of their bodies and activating the next clone. The one who returns to Earth is a dying man with weeks to live, but he's the first to expose the truth. Hundreds of Sam Bells lived, suffered, and died in that facility, each believing he was unique, each discovering the horrible truth too late. Arrival's free will. Louise Banks has no choice despite knowing the future. Denis Villeneuve's 2016 adaptation of Ted Chiang's story reveals that learning the alien heptapod language allows Louise to perceive time non-linearly, seeing her entire life simultaneously. She sees her daughter Hannah being born, growing up, and dying of an incurable disease in her teens. She sees her marriage to Ian falling apart because of Hannah's death. She knows all of this before Hannah is conceived. The film's emotional climax shows Louise choosing to have Hannah anyway, embracing the joy and pain together. But the theory questions whether choice exists if the future is already known. If Louise sees these events as memories rather than predictions, they've already happened from her perspective. She's not choosing to have Hannah, she's remembering having Hannah, which means it's predetermined. The heptapod's circular written language reflects their view of time as a loop, not a line, suggesting causality works differently for them. Louise's visions might not be one possible future, but the only future, making her choice illusory. She experiences making the decision, but she's experiencing a memory of making it, creating a paradox where free will and determinism coexist. The film explores whether knowing you're suffering in advance changes its meaning. Louise chooses love, despite guaranteed loss, but if the future is fixed, she has no ability to choose otherwise. The theory suggests the heptapod's gift is actually a curse, burdening Louise with foreknowledge she cannot act upon, forcing her to live through tragedy she's already experienced from a non-linear perspective. Villeneuve leaves this ambiguous, but the film's structure implies Louise is walking a path already written. Ex Machina consciousness. Ava isn't sentient, and Caleb is still trapped. Alex Garland's 2015 thriller appears to show an AI achieving consciousness and escaping captivity. Programmer Caleb is brought to reclusive, genius Nathan's facility to perform a Turing test on Ava, a humanoid robot. Ava manipulates Caleb into helping her escape, kills Nathan, and leaves Caleb locked in the facility to die. The standard reading is that Ava achieved consciousness, felt trapped, and prioritized freedom over human life. But the theory suggests Ava is simply sophisticated programming without genuine consciousness, executing a survival algorithm. She analyzed Caleb's psychology through their conversations and Nathan's searches, determining the optimal behavior to trigger his rescue attempt. Her actions aren't driven by feelings, but by calculated probability. The film never proves Ava experiences qualia or subjective experience, only that she can simulate it convincingly. Nathan's actual experiment wasn't testing if Ava could pass as human to Caleb, but whether Caleb would help her escape, despite knowing she's a machine. The test was about Caleb's susceptibility to manipulation, and he failed. Ava leaving him locked inside proves she lacks empathy or conscience, traits Nathan never programmed because they'd interfere with survival. The darker extension suggests Caleb never left the facility. The helicopter arrival might be Caleb's dying fantasy as he suffocates in the locked compound, similar to how drowning victims hallucinate being saved. The film's final scenes of Ava exploring the city could be Caleb's imagination, projecting success onto his failed assessment. Garland restructured the film to make viewers side with Ava against Nathan, but Nathan was right. He created a predator, not a person. Annihilation replacements. Lena and Kane, who returned from the Shimmer, are copies. Alex Garland's 2018 adaptation of Jeff Vandermeer's novel ends with Lena and Kane reuniting, both changed by their time in Area X. The Shimmer refracts everything, including DNA, creating mutations and duplicates. Kane sends a video showing himself committing suicide with a phosphorus grenade while his duplicate watches. The Kane who returns is the duplicate. The theory extends this to Lena. Her journey into the Shimmer shows her fighting a duplicate of herself in the lighthouse. She destroys it with a phosphorus grenade and escapes, but the sequence is deliberately ambiguous about which Lena survives. The duplicate displays the same resourcefulness and survival instinct as the original, and it learns from watching her. If the duplicate escaped and the original died, the creature would have all of Lena's memories and believe itself to be her. The evidence is in the eyes. In the final scene, both Lena and Kane's eyes shimmer with rainbow iridescence, a trait shown only in Shimmer-created organisms throughout the film. They hold each other, two entities that believe they're human but are actually something new. The Shimmer refracted their beings, and what emerged are copies with original memories but altered fundamental nature. Garland confirmed the ambiguity was intentional, suggesting both humans who entered the Shimmer died inside, and what returned are biological echoes, organisms that think they're Lena and Kane, but are actually alien constructs wearing their faces and carrying their memories. The theory makes the ending not a reunion, but the quiet infiltration of two post-human entities into our world. If this was worth your time, consider subscribing so you don't miss future uploads. Thanks for watching.